Good day. This 56th day, meaningful moments, 365 days. Familiar faces. I have to tell you that I've been flooded with so many ideas for meaningful moments, and I have to keep reminding myself to go ahead and jot them down, take notes for myself so that I can share that with you. But today's meaningful moment was important to share about familiar faces for me. And it's really interesting because I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago. And, I think that for a lot of that time or that experience, even though you're in a community of a sort, there still is a lot of separation. There isn't always necessarily like a real unity within that community. And one of the things that I found living in lots of different places is that, every area has a different vibe. And sometimes, living rurally can feel like you have this separation, but then there still is community because it's a smaller area where people get together. And then I never expected to live in a real urban setting, and coming from the high rise that we were living in Chicago, really, really urban. There was a sense of community within the building itself. So the familiar faces came about perhaps seemingly more readily because every day you were encountering familiar faces like the doormen and the maintenance people, the people that took care of the building or the pool area or the fitness area or the patio or the grounds, or the grocery store that was in our high-rise building. It was a small grocery store downstairs for the little odds and end pieces and the people that work there. And it was such an honor, like truly an honor, that these were familiar faces we saw every day. And so there was these mixed feelings all of a sudden when it came time to do the move, because these people were integral pieces of our life. And they were relationships that had grown over the last few years. Deep. I can think of one woman who, for whatever reason, we kind of started off on a rough note, not even sure why. It was just sort of, I always got the feeling that she had, maybe measured me up. And, you're seeing so many different people in the city, and I'm sure in that building too, and what she's accustomed to, because she had been in that store for 30 years or so since the building opened, a long time. And, at first I perceived her as being sort of crabby or something like that. And at some point, my husband really won her over. And then we became good friends. And, that last day we were there, and the hugs, despite the COVID, side hugs with masks and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of restrictions in the building still and everything. But, the guy at Mariano's, the manager, and back to this woman that I was mentioning at the little grocery store in the building, and just that moment where we embraced, and it was like this massive amount of love that just rushed through. And I said to her, we started out in a rough way. I'm so glad that it didn't go that way. And she said, yes, we sure did. And then she hung on to me. Powerful moments. Really touching. So don't want to take that for granted, because regardless of where we live, we're having all these different kinds of exchanges. And much too often, I think we're just kind of, going two different directions. So I'm really setting out to think about that with the new people in this community that we're in. I know there's been a guy, in our condo right now kind of doing different maintenance and things like that, and thinking about the relationships with the people in the office and the management office, and the new places we're visiting now, like the new grocery stores we're going to visit and the new people we're going to meet there, and just these familiar faces. And I know that every one of us can relate to that, and maybe we don't pay enough attention to that, and maybe because of the situations that we live in, or, the conditions or circumstances, we don't think about that all the time. But, whether it's the teller at the bank, or the, people that you're accustomed to seeing if you go to a grocery store or some other store, or the gas station attendant, or whomever it might be, where you get your cup of coffee, or, a restaurant or local place that you might visit, or, go to, or, the whomever it is, if your children are in school and you're seeing the teachers, or, even I always think about not just the people that you more would identify as regularly seen, and you want to take a note of them, and, have conversations or have relationships because there's a commonality, like your kids in school with a teacher or something, but just the people on the side, the people in the behind the scenes kind of stuff that just carry forth. And, now there's such a push for everything that's like, the frontline people and all that. Yes, it's true. But just there's so many people that we encounter regularly. And that familiarity of seeing that face, a smile, a feeling of like we're sharing this moment in life together. That is enough to think like that's to be honored. So thinking a lot about those familiar faces today. All those familiar faces that have touched my life. And you may be one of them. And I, for you, one of them. But in this way. Life. Aho.